Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everybody. As we are preparing the last-minute touch-ups for Pesach, right? First of all, I want to give a great yashar koach everybody for coming and making the minyan. And I want to start and finish with something very, very positive about Pesach. For many people, Pesach is a very stressful time, right? So let me read to you something that the Rebbe quotes, and many people quote this, and there's a lot of questions connected to this. The Rebbe quotes, Ha'arizal Kasav. The Arizal writes, Hanizar mimashu chometz bepesach. Anybody who is careful, even for a crumb of chometz on Pesach, says the Rebbe from the Arizal, muftach lo yishlayechta kol hashana. The Arizal says, by going out of your way to make sure you stay away from the smallest amount of Pesach or chometz, you're guaranteed that you will not sin the whole year. Okay? Now, all questions, many questions come to this. In other words, all I have to do is make sure 7 days I stay away from chometz, and then the rest of the year it's free. I can do whatever I want because I'm guaranteed. I won't. So the Rebbe says, obviously, it doesn't take away from the person his freedom of choice. If he intentionally wants to do something wrong, he's still going to do it. God forbid. But the shoygeg, by accident, if you just make sure those 7 days you're clear, and you do everything to stay away from chometz those 7 days, you'll be clear from an accident of a shoygeg the rest of the year. Now this brings a lot of questions, but just before we get to the questions, I want to tell you what the Avnei Nezer says about this statement. The Avnei Nezer says about this statement is, the Rambam says that when a person makes a shavua, you must keep your shavua. We all know that. You make a promise, you must keep your promise. But what happens if you make a promise that makes no sense? It's impossible. So the Rambam says, if a person says, I make a shavua, I'm not eating for 7 days. I'm not eating for 7 days. Says the Rambam, have a shavua shav. That's a wasted shavua because it's impossible. Because the person cannot survive without eating 7 days. All right, so your shavua is a shavua shav. Says the Avnei Nezer, what is the sustenance for the Yetzer Hara? The Yetzer Hara needs arrogance. The Yetzer Hara needs everything that chometz symbolizes. So if for 7 days of the year, you don't give the Yetzer Hara his sustenance, you don't eat chometz, so he dies. So what happens is it's his spiritual sustenance. You unplug that, then the Yetzer Hara loses its strength to fight you. Now, this statement of the Arizal has a lot of shilas, because we find, obviously, throughout history, even in Chazal, we find Tanoim and Amoraim that stumbled different periods of time. There's a very famous Gemara in Masechta Shabbos where the Gemara speaks about Daf Yud Beis Amud Beis. The Gemara speaks about the person shouldn't sit next to a candle on Shabbos and read, because if you sit next to the candle, you might hold the candle and tilt it, and you're making the candle burn better, light better, and that's making the fire, increasing the fire on Shabbos. So Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha says, "Come on, just because I'm holding a sefer near a candle, never gonna happen." So Rabbi Shmuel says, "Ani ekra, I will show you that I could sit and read next to the candle on Shabbos, and I'll control myself." What happens? Pa'amacha, says the Gemara, one time it happened that he sat next to the candle on Shabbos. Kara, he was reading a sefer, ubikash, and he was about to tilt the candle. Amar, and he said, Kama gedolim divrei chachamim. The chachamim, when they make these gezeres, they are right. And throughout the history, and the Gemara actually says that Reb Nosson said not only he was about to, he actually did it. As Ani Yishmo, we found a notebook where it said Ani Yishmo ben Elisha Karisi the Hitisi Ner b'Shabbos. He wrote down his sin. I was reading a sefer on Shabbos. I tilted the candle, and the Cheshiyabana Beis Hamikdash, because of what I did, I commit that when Beis Hamikdash will come, Avi Chatas Shmeina, I will bring a fat sacrifice of Chatas to make up for what I did wrong. So we're not talking about me and you. We're talking about Rabbi Shmuel. You think Rabbi Shmuel wasn't Nizar chometz b'mashu b'Pesach? Is this a bulletproof guarantee? Is this a bulletproof guarantee that if you just 7 days you don't eat chometz, or you're careful about a crumb of chometz? Look at Rabbi Shmuel, not me and you. Rabbi Shmuel tilted the candle. So many Mefarshim asked that question. Others also ask, the Yidden doing the Egel. The Yidden doing the Egel, how did they fall so far when they for sure kept a mashu chometz, and they have rayas from the pasuk that the pasuk says kiloi chometz, and yet they fell so far. So this is, in other words, to take away your bechira, your freedom of choice, if you want to do something, if you choose, God forbid, to do something wrong, this is not bulletproof. However, it's always helpful, and it's definitely a good segula to follow this arizal. That's why you find that of all the mitzvahs in the Torah, somehow we're over and above. For many people, it's very, very stressful Pesach. Why? Even though this is being recorded, for some people, some of my family members, what they're doing outside now and shoveling up the leaves, some of my family members say it's chometz. It's far from chometz. It's spring cleaning. But you let everything go. In terms of halacha, and you'll learn Hilchas Pesach, you'll find so many things that if you already did bittul, you nullified every crumb, and you did bedika, you did beer, you did mechiras chametz, and yet there's a term in halacha, Yisrael kedoshim heim. Jews are very holy, and we are machmir upon ourselves to do more than above the letter of the law. Specifically for Pesach, now you have a reason, because if you could hold back for 7 days, it's the best security you have. Okay, so I want to just tell you halacha, and then I'll finish off with some stories. A lot of people they're running away. A halacha is the feeling, by Chabad, we don't say at the end of the Seder, Chasal Siddur Pesach. That statement, which means the Seder of Pesach, we completed Kehil Chasei, we did it properly, we followed everything it says, and we did it. Thank God it's over. We don't say that statement. And the Rebbe says the reason we don't say that statement because Pesach never finishes. What Pesach is supposed to be, what Pesach teaches us, is not something it's over. Actually, there's a beautiful saying in the Rishimis from the Rebbe. It's brought at one time, one of the Rebbitzins, after a Yom Tov, heard one of the people in the house say, Baruch Hashem, Yom Tov is over. And she said, by us, we don't say Yom Tov is past. We say Baruch Hashem. We have another Yom Tov on our in our luggage. In other words, we accomplished one more thing. It's not over and done. Especially by Pesach, we don't say it's over. We want to live with it. So I want to tell you a halacha. Towards the end of the Seder, one of the last ones is tzafun. Tzafun is where you eat the afikomen. The afikomen is what you set aside from the beginning of the meal. You set aside a piece, however big it is, whatever you learned that in Shulchan Aruch. Now it's time to eat the afikomen. So what is it? What's the halacha about the afikomen? It's the Shulchan Aruch Siman Tov Ayin Ches. So it says like this: Achar achilas afikomen. Once you fulfill that mitzvah of eating the afikomen, done. Asur lecho shum meichel ba'ilam. You shouldn't eat anything after the afikomen. Chutz, the only thing you're allowed to eat is matzah shmura mishas ktsira mishas lisha. That's maybe the only thing you could eat after the afikomen. What's the reason that the afikomen has to be the last thing? Kidei shelo yaver mipiv tam matzah shmura sha'afikomen. Because you don't want that the matzah shmura, take the milk. You don't want the matzah shmura. You want the last thing to leave. You leave the seder with. you want to leave with the taste of the afikoim in your mouth. You want to have the last taste. You know, by the way, I once witnessed this. I was once in a person's house, and I didn't know the minhag till I saw it by him. I saw he was actually not well. I saw he has hanging from the ceiling. It was the middle of the year, pieces of matzah. And I found out that many people have the minhag that they take some of the afikoim and they hang it as a shmira, as a segula for the whole year. And you want to have the last thing you leave with Pesach night is you want to leave with the taste of matzah of the afikoim. So you're not allowed to eat anything. Avol, however, mutar lishtois kol hamashkin she'enim mistakrim. You're allowed to drink any liquid which is not alcoholic. Why? Why are you allowed to drink? Says the Alter Rebbe, lefishatam hashia ein a ma'avir stam achila bipiv. When you drink something, if you're drinking something with taste, tasty water or whatever, tasty liquid will remove the previous taste that you had from the matzah. But if you're drinking water, it doesn't remove the taste of the matzah. The yesh cholkim, however, there's a second opinion that argues, and he says, no, not even water. Shatam, don't drink anything. You leave the Seder night, what do you have? Here and here, matzah. I want to have the taste of matzah, and I want to have the feeling of matzah. I leave matzah.
You drink 2 more cups of wine.
Okay, that has a special mitzvah reason for that. The yesh lochash with divrayim, the Alter Rebbe says that we actually are makbid for this opinion unless it's very much needed. So the Rebbe quotes from the Alter Rebbe's Haggadah. In the Haggadah, the Alter Rebbe by Tzafun, the Alter Rebbe says, okay, now eat the afikoim, and the Alter Rebbe puts v'zorer. Be very careful. Shalayishta achar afikoim. Don't eat and don't drink after the afikoim. So the Rebbe says that's a very funny statement. Why is he only quoting not to drink? Why doesn't he say don't eat and drink? So the Rebbe brings many reasons for this. The Yesh Leimar, one reason the Rebbe says, what does he mean when he says be careful not to drink? Be careful. It doesn't say don't drink. He says be careful not to drink. He's telling you in advance. When you're eating the Pesach meal, Shulchan Aruch, eat enough, eat in such a way that you won't be thirsty to drink. That's the v'yizar. Aleph. And based on this, you could answer why he didn't have to tell you not to eat. Because anyways, the afikoim you have to eat when you're full, when you're done. You're full, the last thing you eat is the afikoim. Bays, over here, the Haggadah is not here to tell you what's allowed to be done, what's not allowed to be done. That you do in Shulchan Aruch. That you learn in Shulchan Aruch. In Shulchan Aruch it says you're not allowed to eat and drink. He's just telling you how to prevent issues. He's giving you a suggestion how to prevent a problem in Shulchan Aruch. When you eat Shulchan Aruch, eat enough and don't eat in such a way that you're leaving over a reason to want to have water or a drink afterwards. Gimel, says the Rebbe, move on. It's understood that this thing that he wants you to be careful not to drink after the hafikoimon. Shezehiru zu zmana yoser achrein hu samuch lachilos hafikoimon. Okay, the Rebbe gives another explanation why he says this. All right. I want to finish off. There's a minhag, the Kashnitzer Magid. Somebody over here davens in Kashnitz Shul. So I'll tell you, the Kashnitzer Magid, just to finish off with a pep talk. Always the night of the Shabbos Mevarchim of Nisan, always would say 3 short stories. People get stressed out with Pesach, so he would say 3 short stories just to get people excited and happy for what they're doing. Story number 1, and a lot of the kids hear these stories in the school, but because for whatever reason, the Kodesh Magda said these 3 stories every year, so I'll tell you the story. There was this Jewish man that right before Pesach he made a barrel of whiskey, a lot of vodka. Back then, a lot of the Jews, that's how they made the parnasa. And he was traveling with the barrel of whiskey, or barrel of beer, whatever. He's going from place to place to sell it. And he had to go over the border. The border stopped him. They saw what it is. They hopped him, and they took it away from him. Because you're not allowed to go across border with alcohol. This was his only parnasa. So this person went running to Rabbi Elimelech in Lizensk, and he was crying. He says, they took away my barrel of beer. They took away all my parnasa. So Rabbi Elimelech says to him, go back to the court and tell them they took away a barrel of water. It wasn't even a barrel of beer. So he comes back to them. He tells that to them. So they say, taste it. They say, it's water. So, I'm sorry. And they gave it back to him. So he gave it back to him. The guy goes back running to Rabbi Elimelech and says, Rebbe, it didn't really help me. I don't have my parnasa. So the Rabbi Elimelech says to him, why don't you taste it? You'll see it's beer. So he tasted it, he saw it's beer, and then everything was fine. And the Yid had enough to sell it and make parnasa for Pesach. This is one of the stories he would bring. The second story he would say, there was once a king that he lost a very expensive ring. And he said, okay, whoever can find the ring, whatever expenses you need to go for the search and rescue, it's all on me. So one Yid who didn't have parnasa, didn't have what to support himself for Pesach, his wife says, why don't you tell the king and at least he'll give us some money to survive in Pesach. This story we all know. Everybody knows the story. So the Yid did the Yiddish thing. He said, yeah, okay, so he gave him a list of, I need money for A, B, C, D. He gave him a bunch of money. He bought all the goods he needed for Pesach. And he started, he had his Seder night. A priest who realized what this Yid did, couldn't stand it, and he's walking by the Jewish home, he's celebrating. It irked him so much. So he went and told the king. So him and the king came watching the guy from the window, and he sees the king is starting to get angry, everything. He sees the Yid who was he got a whole bunch of money to just celebrating. And then they got to Dayenu. And we all know the song, right? And he's singing Dayenu. And it happens to be that this priest's name was Dainu. And he keeps on saying Dayenu. So the king says he must be calling you as the Ganev. That you're the one who, sure enough, they caught him, and that was this famous story. You all know the story. There was another story that a Yid once worked by a paritz. How do you say paritz in English? A nobleman. And the Yid worked the paritz, and this paritz, the nobleman was a shower. Says, look how many people need me for parnasa. If I go away, you guys can't survive without me. And he tell the Jew, see, you need me. And the Jew said, the Eibishter, God will provide. You know the joke, you know that story, God will provide. You all know that story, right? So he says, God will provide. To God, grace Eibishter, Hashem gives parnasa. Really? You're fired. He tells the Jew, I'll show you, you're fired. And he tells the Yid to leave. So it was right before Pesach. The Yid had nothing to make Pesach with. And the paritz, the nobleman, had a storage was full of golden coins. And every once in a while, the paritz would walk in there to clean his coins to make sure there's no rust. And he would clean them by, the good old-fashioned way. So the paritz also had a pet monkey. And a pet monkey copies what he sees other people do. When the paritz walked into the storage to clean the coins, he took along with him the pet monkey, and the monkey sees how the paritz is doing what he's doing. He thought that the paritz is swallowing the coins. He didn't realize. So when the paritz left the room, he started eating the coins. He became full of obviously got a very terrible stomach ache, and he passed out. when the parrot saw that his monkey passed out, he said, "Throw the monkey in the garbage. What do I need him?" He said, "Not throw it to the Moshka the Jew. Go throw it on his front yard." So he should know, just as another way to take him off, to know that if I don't give him parnasa, look what happens to people or things. So when the monkey ended up in the house of the Yid, somehow he got caught and his stomach got ripped, and all the golden coins fell out. And that's how the Yid had a parnasa, and that's how the Yid was able to survive for Pesach. These are 3 stories that he would say every year. But let me just conclude. It's very, very important. You basically have now, today we're Vav, you basically have 8 days for Pesach. Today we have 8 days for Pesach. It's very, very important to spend many, many time to learn the halachas of Pesach. I'll tell you a part from the Tiferet Shlomo from Abdamsk. The Tiferet Shlomo from Abdamsk once told a big rabbi, he says, he asked him for a bracha that he should not, the rabbi asked him, please give me a bracha that I should not stumble in chometz. I should make sure that everything I tell people over Pesach is correct. So you want to make sure to study the laws of chometz, all the laws of Pesach from beginning to end every year. He says, Rabbi, I know it says make sure to study it every year. He says, what's the connection? So he says, because the Shulchan Aruch, the book, stands upstairs and begs by Hashem that people should learn the book. So he does anything to make it happen that people should be able to look in the book. So therefore, they make questions come up to you, so you should be able to search in the book, so you should know what the right answer is. So if you want to make sure that all you do is right, make sure to learn before Pesach. And the halacha is that we start all the laws of Pesach 30 yom lefnei Chag, 30 days before. And the Beis Aharon from Karlin, I think, said that what's the connection? Because 38 days before Pesach is Purim. Purim, you have to get rid of Amalek. The first opening thing of how do you prepare for Pesach is eradicate the Amalek within you, and that's the good way to be prepared for Pesach. Okay? Shalom. You have a coffee?